So congratulations to all the Trumpers. Donald Trump has won the US election and I was dead wrong. Yeah, I predicted a landslide Harris victory and I was dead wrong. So, yeah, I'm a woman now. But the good news is I'm a rich woman because ever since it looks like Trump is winning the presidency, stocks are exploding. Let's take a very quick look at what's happening to the markets right now. Pre-markets, the market's not open yet, but you can see the Dow Jones futures up 900 points. You've got the S&P futures up 107 points and the Nasdaq futures up 322 points. So looking at the portfolio right now looks very green. Let's just take a quick look over that. Yep, so up 35,000 on this portfolio, up another 10 grand, only 10 grand on this portfolio, but market's not open yet. So once the market opens, we should see everything jumping up like crazy. Okay, so again, for those of you who are Democrats and you're kind of like disappointed, oh my God, it's the end of the world, Trump has won, don't worry. Like I mentioned in my earlier videos, it doesn't matter who wins from a stock market perspective, because ultimately the stock market will do very, very well regardless of who's president. And this goes back to 120 years of precedents, right? And we should expect, well, the market has started to price in the rally, right? Because once the market has got certainty of who's in charge, people start putting back money into the market. They start to invest into the market, and that's why you see the market beginning to jump. So if history holds, if the seasonal pattern holds, then we should see a nice rally continuing all the way to the end of the year. Now, year to date, the S&P 500 is up, I think, about 21%. So let's see if we can get more than 25% for the rest of the year. So let me answer a question that some of you have been asking me, which would be, now that Trump has won, is there any changes you're going to make to the way you manage your portfolio? Are there certain stocks that you're going to buy, going to sell, so on and so forth? I can tell you in general, the answer is no. Okay, so whether a Republican wins, whether Democrat wins, it doesn't really affect my investment decisions, because ultimately, I don't allow macro issues, political issues, to influence my investment decisions. I like to make predictions for fun, for entertainment, but when it comes to investment decisions, it's all based on the individual stock. Is it a great business? As long as it's a great business, and I think there's a long runway to growth, and it's undervalued, I will keep adding shares once I get a good price. And even if it's slightly overvalued, I'll hold the stock and let it compound. A good example is Palantir. I know some of you are holding Palantir like me, and the stock recently jumped now above $51, and people are saying, Adam, it looks really overvalued. Should we sell? Should we take some profits? And I think the answer is it really depends on what's your percentage allocation of Palantir to your portfolio. Like for example, if I had, say, a big allocation of Palantir, I had maybe 20% allocation, would I start to sell some? Maybe, right? Because I don't want too much allocation, even though it's a great company. I think there's a long runway, but it is a bit expensive, yeah? But if you have got a reasonable allocation, like for me, my allocation is not that big because I actually sold some along the way. So my allocation is now in my portfolio just about 3%. Okay, so it's not a huge amount in terms of percentage. So I'm not selling, I'm holding it because I think that that there's a long runway to go. Okay, so it really depends. And for me, I would sell out my whole position if it gets like grossly overvalued. If like Palantir, my latest intrinsic valuation, which I just did, which actually there's no change. It's very similar to my last valuation, but I just did a double check earlier on. Yeah, my latest valuation for Palantir is $28, right? So right now at $51, it is 79% overvalued, right? So it is very expensive, yeah? And if it gets more than 100% overvalued, yeah, I may start to trim my position a bit, yeah? But right now I think that in terms of the technical charts, I think there could still be some room to run because it just broke the recent all-time high. So once a stock breaks the recent all-time high, you may have a lot of bullish momentum carrying it forward, especially now with the end of the year rally. All right, so that's on Palantir. So with regards to the rest of the stocks in my portfolio, no intention to make any major changes. All right. And like I said in my previous video, yeah, long run, doesn't matter who's president, we will continue to see positive gains in the stock market, especially with the fact that we are again at the beginning of this AI revolution. We're coming to the third year of the bull market next year. And I'll talk a lot more of this during the Black Market Live online event that's coming up in the third week of November. So remember to register for that for the event, right? So a lot more to share about what I expect in the years ahead. Now, with Trump coming back to office, obviously certain sectors may benefit, okay? And again, this is no guarantee because this is based on what Republicans have done in the past. This is what Trump has promised on the election trail, but it doesn't mean that they will definitely follow through on their promise. Okay, so take this again with a grain of salt. So the first obviously is the energy sector. So Trump and the Republicans are very much focused on favoring fossil fuels. And I don't know whether you know, but the US is the biggest producer of fossil fuels in the world right now. Yeah, it's not the Middle East, it's not the US, right? So the Republicans favor deregulation and promotion of domestic energy production. So that should benefit oil companies like your ExxonMobil, your Chevron, ConocoPhillips, of course, Warren Buffett's Occidental Petroleum. Now, for me personally, as you guys know, I don't invest in energy stocks because I think they're very unpredictable over the long run, and it's a very competitive industry. But I do trade them from time to time using options as a swing trade. The next sector that could benefit would be large banks. So again, Republicans are well known for reducing banking regulations and of course tax cuts to the rich and increasing, and that would lead to more increase in mergers and acquisitions. So that should benefit your big banks, your JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. Okay. Next, defense contractors. So Republicans tend to increase the budget for military spending. So that should benefit defense contractors, and I like to invest in defense contractors. I used to invest in Lockheed Martin. I sold it for a very nice profit. I've not bought it back yet because it didn't drop to my buy level. But if I see Lockheed Martin dropping to my buy level or any of these military defense contractors, yeah, I would start to accumulate because they would do well under a Republican administration that spends a lot on military defense. Next, manufacturing and infrastructure. So steel and manufacturing companies, as well as companies involved in construction and materials like your Caterpillar, your Vulcan Materials, your Nucor, could benefit from increased government spending in this area. But this goes for both Democrats and Republicans, right? Biotech and healthcare. This is something that I'm a bit positive about because I don't hold biotech companies directly, but I hold certain stocks that benefit from the biotech industry, like Viva Systems that provides software to the biotech industry. I also own MedPace that does clinical trials, where biotech companies outsource clinical trials to MedPace. So recently, these two stocks have not performed as well as I wanted to because biotech has not recovered yet since the very high interest rate environment. However, with the Trump administration, there could be a positive impact on biotech due to potential tax cuts and research grants. There could also be advantages with a less regulatory environment for healthcare policies to benefit big pharma like your Pfizer, your Merck, and so on and so forth. But I don't invest in big pharma, okay? Next, small caps. US-focused small caps or mid caps could benefit from business incentives and tariffs that favor domestic production. So as you know, Trump has been talking a lot about he's going to impose a lot of tariffs. He's going to impose a 10% tariff across the board, increase China tariffs by 60%. And I'll talk a bit more about that later on because that could be negative as well, all right? Because that could reignite inflation, all right? Remember that everything that someone does has positive and negative, and it's very hard to tell which is more positive or negative until it's actually implemented, right? But of course, the positive is that with all these tariffs, then that would benefit so-called the domestic industries, which are the small to mid-cap companies. Now, one thing which I love about Trump becoming president again and a Republican sweep is that it's likely they're going to get rid of this person. Okay, I personally do not like this person. Okay, this person, her name is Lina Khan, and she was nominated to be the head of the Federal Trade Commission by Joe Biden. And being the head of the FTC, what does she do? she goes after and sues monopolies. So she, was the one that went to sue Google and sue Amazon and sue United Health and sue Visa, and I don't like that. Because as you guys know, most of the companies I like to invest in are monopolies. I love monopolies because as an investor, I don't like competition, all right? But this lady is kind of like one of those warriors. I'm going to destroy the monopolies in the US. So she has been, going down hard to break up these monopolies and blocking a lot of mergers and acquisitions. Okay, so this is one person who I don't like, not as a person. I don't know her as a person, but obviously I don't like her as being an investor because she's affecting my investments. Okay, so I think with a Republican sweep, they're going to get rid of this person. They're going to get rid of the FTC. They're going to get rid of all these regulations, and it's going to be like hallelujah time for companies with less regulation. So I think that's a positive thing. This is a positive for a Republican sweep. Now, is there a potential negative that I could be a bit concerned about? Yes. Okay. So my one concern is that Trump, if he starts to impose the tariffs that he says he wants to impose, that could lead to reigniting inflation again in the US. Now, again, there are no guarantees. It could be he's just saying that as a campaign rhetoric or a negotiation plot, but he may not actually do it, which I hope, okay? Or he may want to do it, but his team talks him out of doing it, okay? So it may not happen. But if it happens, then that could be a big negative. Why? Because if Trump imposes tariffs, what will happen is that would increase the import prices of goods into the country. So that will lead to inflation. Okay, that will make things more expensive in the US. At the same time, it's not just about that, but he has threatened to deport a lot of immigrants, whether is it illegals or maybe some legals. I don't know the specifics, all right? But remember that, yeah, you got all these immigrants coming to the country, whether legal or illegal. I'm not saying it's good or bad. What I'm saying is this: it's cheap labor. Like it or not, it is cheap labor. And when you kind of like deport all these people, who's going to do the cheap labor? Okay, no one. Okay, so that would increase labor costs, and that would again increase inflation. This fear of inflation reigniting is what is possibly driving the 10-year Treasury yield up in recent days as the market has been pricing in a Trump win. So remember that when there's a fear of inflation, people tend to sell long-term bonds. When they sell long-term bonds, bond prices go down. That's why TLT has been crashing and the 10-year Treasury yield goes up. So what happens when the 10-year Treasury yield goes up? It makes borrowing costs higher. So that could be a negative to companies that depend on borrowing. So these are again your small to mid-cap companies. These are your cyclical companies, like your infrastructure companies that have a lot of debt on the balance sheet. So they could suffer with the 10-year Treasury yield if it goes up too much. And of course, real estate, like REITs would suffer as well, okay? And if inflation gets out of hand, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario could be that the Fed may now go back and raise the Fed funds rate again. Now, if they do that, it's going to be a disaster. That could likely lead to another bear market. Now, will it happen? I hope not. Could it happen? Yes. Okay. So you may say, what can I do to protect myself from that? So that is why I want to ensure, or I ensure that in my portfolio, the majority of the stocks I own are inflation proof. In the sense that if inflation flares up again, the companies I own have the pricing power to raise prices in order to offset their higher cost of business, to maintain their profit margins. So these are companies with strong economic moats with pricing power. Number two, I want to make sure that the majority of stocks in my portfolio are immune to high interest rates. So these are companies with very little debt on the balance sheet with a lot of cash. So that if interest rates go up again, what happens? They don't have to pay more interest on the debt because it's got little or no debt. But instead, they're able to earn a lot of interest income from the cash on their balance sheets. So which are the companies with very low debt, with a lot of cash, with pricing power? Again, these are the big tech companies. These are your Amazons, your Meta, your Adobe, your Microsoft, your Salesforce, your Nvidias of the world. All right, your Palantir, for example. So yeah, the majority of my portfolio will still be focused on these companies just in case we get inflation flaring up again, Fed forced to raise rates again, and another market crash. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. We can't predict the future for certain. All we can do is to make sure that our portfolio is filled with the highest quality companies that can do well under all kinds of economic and market scenarios. So with the election behind us, let's put away our differences in terms of who we prefer. Let's focus on making money again. And with that, this is Adam Khoo, and may the markets be with you. If you want to catch my latest videos, click on the subscribe button right now. Click on the bell so you get instant notifications once I upload my latest video. If you want to check out my online courses, go to piranhaprofits.com. We're going to learn how to invest and how to trade the financial markets and create an income from all around the world. If you want to join my live Wealth Academy program, go on to wealthacademyglobal.com and find out more about how you can learn investing and trading live online. This is Adam Khoo, and may the markets be with you.